Hi, everyone, and we're back to the Neil Haley Show here on the Caregiver Dave Celebrity Segment. I'm excited to welcome the program Caregiver Dave Nasani. Dave, how are you? What's going on, man? What's up?
Awesome, man. I don't know if I'll ever get used to these 85-degree day winter Christmas weather, but hey, it comes with the territory.
Especially being a New Yorker before, for sure. I understand exactly. And our guest today, I can't wait to get the story of the director, Eduardo Rodriguez, to the program. We're going to talk about his latest film, and I'm really excited, The Darkness of the Road. How are you, Eduardo? Thanks for stopping by.
I'm good. I'm here in LA, 58 degrees. So a little different from you guys over there.
So Dave, how's 85 if he's in LA? It's 58.
I don't know. I'm in Santa Clarita. Maybe he's by the ocean.
I'm in Sherman Oaks. I'm in the valley, so it should be actually hotter. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Many
Okay.
times the valley gets
Many
times the valley gets a cloud cover. It'll burn off around noontime.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just jump into Eduardo. Did you always want to be a director? Let's kind of jump into that.
I always wanted to be a director since I was a kid. I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't know what a director was, so I always said I wanted to be a producer. But as I grew up and I learned about the business and all of that, I knew that directing was my thing. I also write, like Darkness of the Road. I wrote it too. I also write, but I don't consider myself a writer. I don't have the discipline to sit down every day in front of a computer and write. So it's only when the voices inside my head get a little too crazy when I write.
Got it.
So where were you born? Did you have access to all of the media and you were watching movies and all that stuff?
Yeah, I'm from Venezuela, from Caracas, and
yeah, they got TV in Venezuela.
Sometimes, not all the time. From time to time, they get TV. I grew up with all the 70s horror movies, and those were my favorites. That I still to this day.
What's your favorite 70s horror movie?
The Exorcist.
One that really got you hooked.
The Exorcist.
That was scary.
Yeah.
A lot of nightmares.
Exorcist, nightmares. But all of them were great movies. Rosemary's Baby, The Old Man.
Like Sybil?
Which one? Sorry?
Sybil.
I don't know. I know that one.
Oh, Google it. Sally Field and multiple personality. Really scary.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna check that out. Okay, cool.
So, Eduardo, would you say in that, did you like the reason like The Exorcist because it is real, not just like a horror movie made up, that it's truth to it? Did that interest you, or did it interest you more that you never know what types of horrific things can happen that are true?
I think to me, why The Exorcist works is because they're not trying to be scary like jump scares. It's this horrible drama that's going on. And you believe in the devil or not, you're still going through this horrible drama between this mother losing his daughter and not knowing what's going to happen. And they're not trying to have like comic reliefs or trying to make it a little lighter. So people, sometimes they say like in horror, you have to have the comedy part so people can relieve the horror. It just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And that to me makes the whole story so horrific that it works at every level. It works with the gore, it works with the vomit and all of that, but it works extremely well at the human level because, I mean, everybody can identify with the drama of this woman losing her daughter to either science or ghosts or whatever you want to call it, but she's losing her daughter, bottom line.
Eduardo, take us on a journey of the evolution of horror films, starting back when we saw, the Chinese version of King Kong and Godzilla, and they were so corny, but there was no tech involved, but nevertheless, they were scary. How those developed and where we are today and where we're going in the future.
That's actually a question you should ask my editor. He's the one is a film buff. I'm not that big of a film buff. But I think horror has always worked when it speaks to us. It's not just trying to be scary. It speaks to us, like as I was saying about The Exorcist, it speaks to us at a human level. And like you said, King Kong and to Get Out, if you go all the way to the spectrum, there's always that human drama involved, that human story, and I think that's good horror. To me, 70s was a great time for horror because they weren't just about, again, the gore and the jump scares. They were about how these people are being affected by this supernatural event or this killer or whatever it was. So I think horror is always, it's funny because sometimes I get in a fight with my agent because it's like, oh, horror is not doing well, so we can't sell this. And I'm like, horror is always going to do well. What are you talking about? Horror has always done well, and it will continue to do well because it's like comedy, it like hits us at the deepest level, at the core of being a human being is. We're talking about like having nightmares. When you laugh, that's a very emotional experience. And the same thing when you're scared, that's a very deep experience. And I think that's why it always works. So there's not really a time where horror works or doesn't work. It's just good horror and bad horror. And I think the future of horror is just going to be that. It's just going to be keeping that human story. And it has evolved a lot. I mean, like if you look at all the 80s horror movies with all the slashers and all of that. I remember when I was a kid, I made a VHS tape of all the Jason killings. And I cut it to music because I only watched those movies just to see the different kinds of killings that they had. And that was all it was for those movies. There was no real story. And now you go and you see something like Get Out or Midsummer, which are great horror movies of these days. And it has evolved. It's not about the killing. Actually, there's very little gore. There's very little killing, but it's all about creating that atmosphere and that tension. So it has evolved a lot, and it will continue to evolve. But to me, it's always about that, about the human drama.
The storyline,
Yes.
you think is better than the days when it was a slasher and really no storyline at all?
I do think so. I don't think it's better or worse. I do think it connects more with people because, again, I love, like, if you tell them, hey, let's watch Friday the 13th, I'm in, so I don't think it's worse. It's just it's more timeless when you have something that is just not about the gore and the killings.
Yeah, well, there's also films that are not rated horror films, but they have elements of horror in them. I think of The Hunger Games and Planet of the Apes, the latest version, Jurassic Park.
Absolutely.
Even though we know it's fake, that there are no dinosaurs, it's scary when that's coming at you.
Absolutely.
I think we're like in the moment, and our subconscious doesn't know, is this real? Should I run? Should I fight back?
Absolutely. And it's all about creating that tension. Alfred Hitchcock was a pioneer on creating tension and suspense, and he always said it like, you tell the audience there's this bomb under the table and you don't know when it's going to go off, and immediately you're like, oh shit, what's going to happen here? It doesn't have to be that complicated, it doesn't have to be that convoluted, but it is effective. We all want to know when that bomb is going to.
You can relate because we ask ourselves the question, well, what if I was in that situation? How would I react?
Exactly.
That's so true. It's like, and what happens next? And so tell us what some of your major projects before this, what you've been working on in your career that you've really, so that people will understand what you've directed and produced before this film we're going to talk about soon.
I don't think I ever had like a major film. It's always been small movies. Long story short, and I was telling you about Joel Cezanne.
Yeah.
I went to film school in Tallahassee at FSU, Florida State. And my short film there, my thesis, got me to all these festivals, and he went to Cannes, and it was a big deal. And out of that, I got a 3-picture deal with Dimension Films. And that's how I met Joel Cezanne, because he was a producer at that time with Dimension and Bob Weinstein. So to me, it was a huge surprise. I was waiting to finish film school and come here to LA and start being a PA on set and doing all the stuff. And all of a sudden I had this deal with Dimension Films, and I was making my first feature coming out of film school. So I was super lucky that coming out of film school, I got the deal. And then after that, it's just been slowly but securely, I've been getting movies one after the other. But it's never been like a big major film. It's always been.
Is it more
small
you're
movies.
getting more ownership of it, and a lot of it where you're going after the funding yourself and as a director and producer, or is it vary? Like what?
It varies. Yeah, it absolutely varies. Sometimes it's always it's a partnership with the producer. Sometimes you get a producers who get you and like you go together to the battlefield and you make the movie together. Sometimes you're in completely separate page, completely different pages from the producer, and then it becomes a battle. You know, it's like, hey, what are we doing this? Or, well, we got to save money on this. Like, no, you don't want to save money on that because the movie's gonna suck. So it becomes more of this dance. So it varies. It's not just because it's not automatic that you get control because it's a smaller movie. It depends more on your partnership with the producer. That's been my experience so far.
Now I'm a caregiver, and am I the only one who's wondering why Dementia Films selected that name?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Want you to forget the film after you watch it?
Yeah, I have no idea.
All right, let me know. Get back to me on
I
that.
guess it's because crazy, right? Yeah, the craziness of when you get in dementia from just the amazing of just being scared, right? Scary.
Probably.
Exactly.
That's going to keep me up at night. So get
All
back
right,
to
so
me
let's
at the
talk
end of
about
that.
the darkness of the road. Because anytime we don't, we make that wrong turn and we go on the wrong road and it's dark, it's scary. And it seems like more and more the older I get, and sometimes roads seem darker, especially if there's no light, and so give us the premise of the darkness of the road.
Yeah, we're always afraid of the dark, aren't we?
We're always afraid of indeed. Darkness of the Road is a very simple story. It's actually based on that short film that I was telling you about that got me the 3-picture deal with Dimension back in the day. And I'm talking about 20 years ago. This is 2001. Basically, Darkness of the Road is the story of this woman who's traveling cross country, and her car breaks down. She's traveling with her little girl, and she meets this hitchhiker who there's something off about her. You don't know what you can't really pinpoint what it is, but there's something off about her, and she basically decides to give her a ride because she's alone in this desolated road. It's in the middle of nowhere, and as they continue with the trip, this demon force, if you want to call it that, start attacking them and tormenting them, and you don't know what's going on. And sometimes you feel like the hitchhiker is responsible for what's going on. Sometimes you think she's on her side. Sometimes you think she's part of all the horror that's going on. Yeah. And it's her journey to discover what's going on there. And the little girl gets lost on the road. So that on top of all the stuff that's going on, she has to find her daughter.
Oh, that's scary for it is.
How does she disappear? That's part of the plot you don't want to share.
That is part of it, because the big reveal is how she disappear.
Just the next scene. So that'll be don't know.
Exactly.
Next time she turns around, the little girl is gone, and you don't know where she lost it or why she lost it.
Gracious.
I tell you, when I was a father and I had a 4-year-old, and you take her to the park or something, I went to Venice Beach one time, where that is, and I said, stay right there. I'm just gonna get this pizza. I turn around, she's gone. And for that 15 minutes, man, you're just going crazy.
Absolutely.
God, yeah, that's the scariest thing, to have something that's lost and find it for sure.
And we remember those movies where the same thing happened, and we just fear for the worst.
So you say 20 years in the making in a lot of ways, Eduardo. It's got to feel great, right? For this film to be out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I wrote the feature version probably 10 years ago. So I'll say the feature is 10 years in the making. And because it's an indie film, it took a long time to get the finances together and to get the right people behind the movie. So it is a long journey, but you get used to it. I think when you're here in LA, you get used to the idea, like you wait, and then all of a sudden it all comes together and you just go and make the movie. That's kind of that's how my experience been. It's a lot of waiting, and then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, everything comes together, and you just go and make your movie. So so you just gotta be really really patient. Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah, patience is a virtue, and not giving up. Did you ever want to give up? You ever say this thing's just a waste of time? They see insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. When are you supposed to keep going, and when do you cut your losses?
I think you always, and I've talked to the DP and the editor. They're good friends of mine. I've been working with them for 15 years plus in movies. And I think anybody who is in the right mind wouldn't be making movies because you will give it up, like you said, like immediately, like fuck this, I'm not gonna keep up with this or something. There's a lot in this town, a lot of promises that are never kept. So you have to be a lot OCD. You have to be a lot like, I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to continue to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I don't care if the whole world is falling apart around me. I'm going to do this. Yeah. And you have to be a little naive in the sense, like, you have to hope always for the best. Even if it falls apart, even if it doesn't come through, you still think at some point I'm going to make this, and it's not going to be tomorrow, and it's not going to be in a month, but at some point it'll happen. And sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it just falls apart and it sucks and you hate it because you work so hard. But that's part of the game. You got to love it. Mm-hmm.
And for every success story, there's 1,000 that failed.
Yeah.
How hard is it to make a film now with COVID? Did you make this before COVID or?
We made this before COVID, which we were really lucky because I can't imagine. I didn't make a movie last year, so I can't imagine. But my DP have been telling me the stories because he's been on set quite a bit, and it's gotta be nerve-wracking because the amount making a movie is all about managing the time. You have a certain amount of weeks or days sometimes to make your movie, and you have to manage how you shoot your movie in those days that are given to you because of budget. And I can't imagine all the time. I'm not gonna say it's being wasted because you want to be safe and you don't want people to get COVID, but all the time that's being spent on the testing and the mask and the protocol to shoot every take, every setup. It's got to be nerve-wracking for the director and the first AD and the producers. It's got to be like, man, are we gonna accomplish this?
How many hours during that 20 years were you actually working? Per week, per day, per month. I mean, how much of that 20 years was actual work?
The 20 years, because the thing about a director is like you never stop working, because even when you're making a movie, you're already thinking about the next one. You're already developing the next script. Otherwise, you don't work. Like if you just sit down and be like, I'm just gonna wait until see how this movie is gonna do.
I see.
Then you don't do the next one. So it's a nonstop work for the director, and I think for the producer as well, because producers, it's the same deal with producers. They find this project, they find the resources, they put it together, but while they're on set, you see them all the time. They're already on the phone making the calls for the next one, and sometimes they even leave set. It's like, all right, I got the next one. This one is in their hands. I'm out. So I think for the guys who are responsible for the movies, it's just nonstop.
So why should we see the film? What is like the reason for horror fanatics to go out and check it out?
Okay, before I answer that question, I was gonna say, so I worked 20 years, but I got paid probably like 3 years. If you put all the amount of hours that you've worked and the amount of money that you've made, it's like probably like less than minimum wage.
Oh my goodness.
For all those 20 years, yeah.
We haven't hit the jackpot yet.
No, you have to hit the jackpot to make a lot of money. Yeah, absolutely.
Like buying a lottery ticket.
It is like buying a lot. That's why there's so little. I mean, there's a handful of people at the top, of
Yeah.
movie making. because
they
it's
didn't
like
give up, did
winning
they?
the lottery. They didn't give up. Because it's a labor of love.
Sometimes it's skill. Sometimes, like Suzanne Summers, it was just luck. She was in the right place, at
Exactly.
the right time. And the commissary, Johnny Carson, says, "Hey, pretty lady," blah blah blah. Next is history.
And I think it's always a combination of all of those. Like I said, like with my short film, I never expected to come out of film school and get a deal with anybody. But I got lucky. But it's not just about being lucky. It's like you have to put out the hours, you have to put out the work.
Exactly.
And,
Or maybe
and
it's
that's how it
destiny,
happens.
you know. if
So
you don't-
I believe it's a mixture of things, as Eduardo said. Never know, because again, it's the talent, it's the work ethic, and it's being in the right place, right time. Now,
Mhm.
so my last question I was asking you, Eduardo, is
Yeah.
why should people see the film?
People should see the film because, like I was saying before, horror is something that is like a catharsis. It makes it all the stress, all the stuff that you have going on. You put it out there in the movie. You're scared for that time, and you come out at the end of the film, hopefully a little bit more relaxed. You put all that stress on a horror movie, and I think if like you said, like if I did my job right. I think with Darkness of the Road, you'll come out of the end of the movie and be like, okay, my life is not that bad, so I can go on and be a little happier, So I think it's good entertainment for sure.
Great. And you
Can
gotta
you
be
talk about the
entertained.
next project yet, or no?
I'm sorry.
Can you talk about the next project that you got on your mind, or no?
I have a couple of series. I really want to get in. I did TV like 10 years ago, Fear Itself for NBC. That was a horror anthology, but I never done a series. And there's so much potential for series right now.
Regular
that,
paycheck.
I'm working on a couple of those to see if one of those, fingers crossed.
Well, we'll keep your
happen.
definitely. We'll think of you for sure.
Yeah,
All
thank you,
right.
thank you.
All right. So Dave, you have a final question. Dave's a caregiver, and he has a caregiving question for you. Go ahead, Dave.
I'm Caregiver Dave. My wife had a stroke 25 years ago, lost her speech, became paralyzed. And I made a lot of mistakes for a couple of years, the grief process, but we reinvented ourselves, and she still can't talk. She can communicate non-verbally through Pictionary, charades, kind of like Harper Marx. And so I became Dave, the caregiver's caregiver, because I know that I've made a lot of mistakes. If I can help other people not make those mistakes, I might save their lives, because 30% of caregivers actually die from the stress. And so everyone is either going to become one or need one day. So it's inevitable, So my question to you, Eduardo, is have you had any experience with caregiving? Any people in your life, your parents, grandparents, friends?
Yeah, absolutely. Both of my parents, I lost my dad to cancer, and I lost my mom to a stroke. And I was there sitting next to them and keeping them as comfortable and as happy as they could be while they were going through their final hours. So yeah, I've been on that chair.
Tough job,
I know
huh?
how it feels. Mm-hmm. But
Yeah.
it's a lot of love and a lot of like you said, you want the best for that person that you love so much. And
that's why I started CaregiverDave.com. If you know anybody going through the stress, you see them, hey, go to this website. This guy will help you out.
Absolutely.
Want them to strive, not just survive.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So, all right. So fantastic, Eduardo. We appreciate you coming by. So what did you think of my horror audition? Because you said you watched my interview with Joel. Do you think do you have a part for me down the line?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. We'll be in touch.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
For the next
I'll
one.
keep working on it because I'm a legitimate 6'10", looking for some work definitely in Hollywood, and you never know the opportunities. So when you're ever doing another film, you need a big guy in a slasher type film, I'm here.
Absolutely. Awesome, man. I appreciate it.
You've got those Charles Manson eyes when you
All right. We appreciate it, Eduardo. Thanks.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks,
Great
Dave.
meeting you.
Take care.
Take
Everyone
care.
check out his film. Appreciate it. Thanks, Eduardo.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. That was the Caregiver Dave Celebrity Segment, guys. Take care.